Hello and welcome to everyone that's dialing in. We're just going to give it a couple of minutes to let everybody get onto the call, and then we'll get the conversation started. So, good to see everyone joining. Let's see how many people we get. Got a few more people that are still dialing in, so we will give it a few more minutes, perhaps another minute, to let people dial onto the call. Hi everyone that's dialing in. We're just a couple of minutes past 1:30, so let's make a start for today. And first of all, thank you very much for joining us for this conversation, and we're really excited to be bringing this to you. And I guess really the purpose of today is to talk a little bit about the new report that we've just launched on trans, non-binary, DE&I. But actually, more importantly, we're here to hear from some of our fantastic trans Project 1000 role models actually sort of working within the industry. So you are in for a treat today. And really, a key theme of this whole week, Trans Awareness Week, is in creating the conversation. So we do want to have the conversation really sort of lively today. So there's a couple of ways that you can engage. You can pop us questions through anonymously on the Q&A function. And you can also chat to us as well. The people have already started chatting away using the chat function as well. So we will try and get to most of your questions, etc. Now, we all know that within sort of the world of DE&I and any sort of social equality work, that we often get a lot of passion and a lot of energy. And I do think actually we're pushing on an open door within the industry when we ask people to support. And I guess sometimes we can get a little lost in the energy and the passion. And what's really important is that we bring this back to people and sort of real life experiences. So that's what we're really sort of aiming to do today. And we've got three brilliant role models on the call that are going to be talking to you and sharing their views and their thoughts as well. Now, this whole week is about transgender awareness. So this is an annual sort of date that runs from the 13th to the 19th of November in the run up to Trans Day of Remembrance. And I think a key point is what we are seeing at the moment within general society and the media is a lot of backlash against gender and gender identity. And we do know, according to the data points, that hate crimes are really on the rise. So it's absolutely critical, therefore, that organisations can really step up during this time of hostility and uncertainty. And for those of you who do know me, I'm forever the optimist and looking for ways in which we can support and ways in which we can empower. So it's been a really interesting process sort of putting this report together. I thought I'd just share a couple of points with you all, and we will be sharing a link for you to all download the report after as well. But really the objectives were fivefold in terms of the report. And what we wanted to do was to really spotlight the challenges of developing transgender and non-binary DE&I within the industry. Secondly, we wanted to outline a bold new case for change and lay out the imperatives really as to why we think we need to improve as an industry. And thirdly, to highlight other sort of relevant research and works that have been done within this space. And fourthly, to shine a light on some of the examples and best practices that are already taking place within many of our member firms. But we also wanted to provide some useful tools as well and frameworks for financial services firms to leverage. So within the report, there was quite a few sections, but we've tried to make it as much as it's about the theory, of course. We've tried to provide some really practical tools as well. So they are sort of in the report, and I would encourage everybody to sort of take a look. Now, just before we move on to sort of the conversation today, I just wanted to share a couple of stats with you. Stats which I think are really, really significant in the modern world of work. And the first one that I wanted to share is that around about 98% of trans and non-binary Gen Z are now saying that they're only going to buy from companies that visibly support and authentically support trans and non-binary issues. We've also got around 50% of Gen Z, so that's our future talent coming into the workplace, that now think and believe that the sort of gender binaries of male and female are outdated. And we've got a whopping 94% of trans and non-binary talent saying that it's only going to join an employer if they are visibly supportive of trans and non-binary employees. So the data points are really significant, and we know that we've got an increasing proportion of our talents and our society, our customers and our clients that are identifying as transgender and non-binary. Now, it's a fact that organisational allyship and a culture of trust really are the building blocks of creating an LGBT inclusive environment. So absolutely important that organisations can build in not just recognition around same-sex orientation, which is where the industry has really started when it comes to LGBT, but also gender identity as well. And actually, by not building gender identity into D&I strategies, we are really at risk of losing our existing LGBT talent, but also not attracting the new talent of Gen Z. So really, really high stakes all round. We're looking at a number of data points as well around increasing sort of focus on this from the asset owners, the investment consultants. There's an increasing number of questions starting to come through now around gender identity. And we also know that this issue is increasingly on sort of the regulators' sort of radar as well. But in order to really sort of navigate this, organisations really are going to have to be brave in putting a position forward. We've got to make sure that that's linked directly to equality, culture, values, and sort of business purpose. And we need to make sure as well that we've got the right action happening. So there's lots here to sort of think about, and to workshop some of these themes. We're going to sort of open sort of a conversation with this brilliant panel. Just before I do that, there's a quick sort of few questions that are coming through here. All the stats, all of these in the report as well, with all the footnotes and things as well. So you'll be able to get all of these stats and the information in the report, and we will share a link with you after the sort of the webinar today. But without further ado, this is the really exciting part. Let's talk to the panel, and Erica, perhaps if we can come to you first, tell us a little bit about your role at BlackRock.
Great, Matt, thanks for having us today. It's such an exciting scenario to be in here, and hundreds of people joining right now. But yeah, first off, I've been at my firm BlackRock for almost 25 years, been in the industry, and transitioned just about almost 5 years ago. The exciting part about my role now is being able to be front and center and drive the agenda. And my role is now Director of Client Engagement for DE&I. So it's all encompassing all aspects of DE&I. I mean, it's nothing that I haven't been doing off the side of my desk for the past few years, driving agenda for LGBTQ, but it's really exciting now to do it across the board, and also the intersectionality among the two really meeting together. So happy to be here. Fantastic. Yeah, great to hear about the work that you're doing, external to the organization as well. I think that sends a real clear message, doesn't it, and how important this is to BlackRock. And thank you for dialing in from the US as well. I know it's early for you, so appreciate that. Let's go over to Emma. Emma, tell us a little bit about your role at St. James's Place Wealth Management.
Hi, Matt. Yeah, it's not early over here in the Cotswolds, I can assure you. So I'm Emma Palethorpe. I work for St. James's Place Wealth Management, a UK-based wealth manager, FTSE 100 firm. And I often refer to having a day job and a gay job. So my day job is that I'm a program manager in the change function, delivering business change. My gay job is interesting because I view my gay job as transcending work. So the bit that I do in work is chairing the LGBT network. So that's driving the kind of the LGBT inclusion agenda forwards internally, both looking at support, education, and also promoting ourselves externally as an inclusive employer. The other half of my gay job outside of work is that I volunteer with an LGBT youth charity. So that's 14 to 18-year-olds as a youth leader. So kind of help them discover who they are, be comfortable with who they are. And it's really interesting because there's a lot of learning I get from that group that I can then apply back in the workplace, because those are the people that are going to be in the workplace in not very long.
Super, thank you. And Emma, tell us a little bit about your role within Fidelity and a bit about what you do.
Yeah, so I work in on the customer service team at Fidelity. So I'm much more kind of client focused, client facing, although I speak mainly to advisors. So that's my day job, as we say. And yeah, my beyond that, I've been pushing a lot of kind of changes on that front to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward
Yes.
for trans clients. And also I lead the non-binary network, the LGBT network at Fidelity in the UK. And we also publish an in-house scene, which is DE&I focused, called The Bridge, with myself and one of my colleagues, Fox. We do that together. So yeah,
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Super. I think it's really good. And one of the themes that you've all sort of spoken about and picked up on actually is the importance of building these conversations in, not just internally for our talent, but also sort of externally as well. And I think this really does lead us perfectly into sort of the first question point for today, which is, why we think, trans and non-binary DE&I is so critically important for the industry. And let's go back to you, Erica, to get your views on this.
Yeah, I mean, well, first off, it's the moral human thing to do, hands down. That's the number one answer, right? The second thing is, I mean, look, there's science behind this. And regardless of what the person is or how they represent or what their name is or identity, we all know that diverse opinions create innovation and new ideas and different perspectives and lessen groupthink. We are your employees, right? That's number one. We are your employees. We always have been. And I think that's important too, to recognize that. And as you said earlier, Matt, I mean, look, the generations, and for those who aren't aware, that Gen Z, I mean, the numbers I have are born from 1995 to 2012. And a number of them, up to 20%, identify as somewhere on the spectrum.
Yeah.
And these are the next generation of employees. And where they want to be employed, they want to be free to express themselves. So you're not going to survive if you don't embrace us in some form or fashion.
Yeah, I think that's a really critical point, actually, because it's not just, trans and non-binary or LGBT, talent that really genuinely cares about these issues. It's actually, we're talking about all of Gen Z here. A lot of Gen Z want to see the organizational advocacy, the signaling, the support around these, these important areas of sort of DE&I. Amber, what are your thoughts on what Erica said there, and what are your views really on the significance of this trans DE&I for the industry?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think. Oh, sorry.
That's all right. No problem. You're obviously both very, very keen to sort of tell us your thoughts today. Let's go to Ember first, then we'll come to you, Ember.
Yeah, so I was actually just gonna agree wholeheartedly with what Erica was saying there. I very much was like, it's just the right thing to do. Like, it's important on just a basic human level. But beyond that, yeah, like you've mentioned, obviously it's very important to kind of the generation that's coming into the workforce now. And you don't want to cut yourself off from that talent. You don't want to cut yourself off from LGBT talent, who from that's going to be important, non-binary talent. It just doesn't make sense to be like, actually there's this whole segment of people who might well be very talented that we're just not gonna engage with, not gonna deal with. I don't think that is as important as kind of the basic human level, but it's certainly not not one to ignore.
Yeah, I think what we are starting to see now is a lot more conversations happening around gender identity, and some of the sort of the questions pushback that I get from some of the sort of the leaders that we talk to is that why aren't we talking about this more? We need to be, and what can we do? So I think we're definitely getting the right sort of signals from the industry, etc. And I think we're in a good position now. But Emma, let's go over to you. Tell us your thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. So yeah, I think Erica spoke about the moral case, the business case, which are both very, very detailed, documented. I think there's a legal case as well, and Erica, you can probably talk about this much better than I can around the NASDAQ listing ruling change that happened earlier this year. That all companies have to have at least one director who self-identifies as either a minority or LGBTQ+. There's an FCA consultation currently underway that's on similar grounds. So it's a matter of time before there's also a legal case for being diverse. But coming back to Erica's point about the moral case, folk don't choose. No one would choose to be trans or non-binary. We just are. What we do choose is to be authentic and to live our lives as who we're meant to be. And I think the industry needs to do its bit to help make that easy.
Absolutely. Yeah, really sort of strong points there. And I think this, again, links into another one of the themes that we were all, really sort of excited to talk about today. But we know, obviously, within the climate at the moment, sort of globally, with regards to trans and non-binary equalities and rights and recognition, we are at a point now where support for this group and advocacy from financial services is, in my view, now more important than ever. So perhaps we can sort of build on that a little bit more. And let's go over to you in terms of why you think right now this is really significant.
Myself, yeah.
Please, sorry, a little delay on the line.
No, it's fine.
No,
mainly I just wanted to make sure I hadn't misheard, because I was like, Ember or Emma?
Sorry, I'll try and be clearer.
No, it's fine. So just in terms of why it's important at the moment, so yeah, it's very much like there is a very fevered, very difficult media atmosphere at the moment. And I think what you were saying again about the kind of generational difference about this can be seen in a lot of the narratives around this. So there have been some very high profile, very poorly reported stories recently. And the kickback from that at the organizations that have reported them has come from the younger employees, the younger people in the organization saying, this isn't suitable, these aren't, this isn't honest reporting, this isn't fair reporting. But yeah, the media atmosphere, and it's a very small minority who are kind of pushing, in my opinion, who are pushing that sort of narrative. But it is very loud, and they're people who have a very big platform, regardless of what they may say sometimes. I think it's really important at the moment, just because of that very fevered, difficult atmosphere that's kind of being generated and is being deliberately generated. It's been ginning up very similar stories to those used in the past to attack the rest of the LGBT community. Yeah,
I was actually on a webinar yesterday talking to another brilliant trans person, and one of the questions that an ally asked was, is it true that other parts of the LGBT community, the L, G, and the B, are working against the T, and you're not working together? Because that's what we see in the media. This is what we're reading, and this person said, actually, no, that's completely not true. But that's what the media is telling us, and that's what the media wants you to believe. So I think the role of the media within this conversation, I think, is incredibly significant. And we know, of course, that can contribute towards what people think, what people feel, but it might not necessarily be the reality. How are we seeing sort of this play out, Erica, sort of within the US?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. First off, kudos to getting 3 trans women whose first name all start with an E. How you spell that?
It wasn't deliberate.
Look, I had the pleasure of helping to recruit this year, which is a great feeling. It's one of the things I really do enjoy. And what I was astonished to see is the number of trans or non-binary applicants coming in and to interview. And we had some coming in. We have somebody coming into the sales organization, which is a first for us.
Wow.
Here. So to see that is just validates what we're talking about, that the wave is coming. The wave is now here. They're graduating and they're coming into your workforce. Again, you'd be foolish not to adapt and embrace.
Yeah, really strong points. Let's go to Emma. That's Emma from SJP.
I'm going to come at this from a completely different angle, but maybe building on Erica's point a little. So I read a Gartner report recently around the priorities for HR leaders, and the number one priority, 59% of organizations put this top, was around building critical skills. That is the top priority for HR leaders. If you want to learn about the Great Resignation, it's a Google away. It's very well documented that there's going to be skills shortages in the coming years as more folk leave the workforce than enter it. So tie that in with the number of Gen Zs who are either in the workforce now or will be in the next few years. If a company is going to thrive, if it wants to achieve its strategic objectives, it's got to create an environment where trans and non-binary folk feel they belong and can be effective. And That's it. There's a rich seam of talent there to dig into.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's sort of one thing, attracting this talent, right, and getting them to join your organisation. But we know that people are only as good as they feel within a workplace environment, and as good as the empowerment and sort of support around. So I think therefore we've got to work really, really hard at making sure we can include everybody equally. But I think there's also something in this here where we have to respect that other people may not, the vast majority of the industry, and the report makes this case, don't know much about transgender identities or non-binary identities, or actually don't know anything at all. So I think there's a whole education sort of journey that we have to go on, and I think we're starting to get there. I know obviously Erica and within your organisation, you've been massively involved in this both internally, and now you're taking that message out externally. And I think that's a good point, actually. I think maybe we can build on that a little bit. Talk to us a little bit about some of these conversations now that you're driving and leading with clients.
Yeah. First off, I want to make one comment what Emma said about the education. We need to re-recruit our employees every year, because they will vote with their feet too if they're not happy in their current environment. So that training is imperative, as well as manager training. So, the aspects about the conversation, so it's two-sided, right? The one thing that we did here at BlackRock is we, a number of years ago, changed our out network to out and allies, right? And we wanted to invite in those allies to help cascade the messaging, help them better understand who we are. I think the unique thing that we see today is that younger generations don't get into the details of the questions. They just accept you who you are. Me being a little bit older, when I talk to someone, it's like they want to find out all these stories. Now, look, I entertain them, but to me, it's an point of education. It's an opportunity to educate. And that's exactly what we're trying to do, both on the inside and outside. One of the other initiatives was driving a presentation I built for a lot of our retail advisor engagements, and just helping them to understand who we are. Because a lot of times there's misconceptions. And there is some unique challenges we face as a community. And that's all of LGBTQ, whether it's excessive spending habits, whether it's some of the healthcare specialty needs, right? The educational aspect of it, as well as the understanding of pronouns and this acronym of what LGBTQ stands for, can help lessen that awkward conversation at first. We need help. The advisors know that and the community as a whole knows the dynamic is changing. So to bridge that gap, we need to just help educate along the way.
Yeah, so lots of focus from BlackRock then on education, awareness. How do we equip our people that are talking to our retail clients with the knowledge that they need to make them feel more comfortable? How do we normalize some of these conversations? Really, really strong. Emma, let's go over to you. You talked a little bit before about the work and the focus for Fidelity at the moment is starting to build more in on sort of the external, the client side, etc. What are your views on how best to do that, or tell us a little bit about how Fidelity is evolving its thinking here?
Yeah, so we've done a lot of work on it recently. So when I came in, there were some process issues that I realized that must have been implemented a while ago, about things like changing your name if you told us that you were trans. What was much more difficult than just changing your name if you didn't tell us. So things like that. And I kind of, those were things that I made sure to get fixed as soon as I've noticed. And it's the kind of thing that unless you're thinking about it, you don't go looking for. So we've made those changes. I know that we're working hard at the moment to kind of update the ability to have a non-binary pronoun. We do have a couple of non-binary colleagues who I work with, and I know that that's a big important thing for them, that they can, that their post goes to Mux as opposed to Miss or Mr. On the back end, we've recently, we've started promoting having your pronouns in your email signature, and it's not just trans people who are doing that. I know quite a few cis colleagues who are doing that, which helps kind of normalize it and make people comfortable with that concept. And I think that's a really kind of great move we've made. And I'm allowed to do that on external emails as well. That was something that I was a little bit concerned about. I send emails to advisors that makes that clear.
Yeah. I think, personal pronouns, aren't they? I quite often get the question, what are they for? And we've got a few of those points actually coming through in the chat function, so we can talk a bit more about those at the moment. But I think a key point here is that they help normalize the conversation and get the conversation going.
Absolutely.
So really, really effective. So good to hear about the good works there. And Emma, that's Emma, but anything that you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think having the data to drive the decisions, I think, is really important. So I was just reflecting on this while Emma was talking. We do diversity data collection at SJP. We had a 72.3% response rate. And I'll say the data isn't anonymous. So we initially did it completely anonymous. Now we attach it to the employee record, but it's anonymous in use, but not anonymous in collection. So what we can do is merge that data with salaries, for example, or location, or velocity through the organization. So it gives us a richness to understand how, when we're attracting diverse talent, how they are getting on at the organization, how they're staying. The other thing that we've done is change our recruitment forms. So when we have applications externally for new recruits, for example, under gender, you can now say, I think the options are male, female, non-binary, prefer not to say, or prefer to self-describe. And you can just enter free text. So we can get that richness of data that is going to help us to influence the senior management within the organization. Say, look at the people that are coming to SJP. We need to create an inclusive space for them.
Yeah. Brilliant. And it's been so good to see SJP progress this. Question that's come through from Jess over at LCP. How did SJP collect such a good response rate to data collection?
Yeah, we were slightly disappointed because we targeted 75%.
Okay.
How did we do it? We did an awful lot of engagement and management. And I think the first point was around trust that the data will be held confidentially and securely, and that there's no way that anyone can access it for any reason, and that in use it will be anonymized. It's held and on the employee record, but the minute it gets extracted, it gets anonymized. I think there was also perhaps a little bit of a competitive angle between different divisions around who could get the highest percent rate.
A little healthy competition is always good. We've got some other questions coming through here as well.
Hey, Matt, can I make a comment too? Just one thing. A lot of things are said. The forms, the applications, the language, the dress code. Don't forget about the bathrooms. Gender neutral bathrooms. I just used one down the hall a little while ago. But it's so important, and it's interesting in the States here, and this, we have over 250 bills going on between various topics. Bathroom bills not included in that mix. But that's probably one of the most awkward things for someone who's obviously starting to transition, or during transition, or post-transition, is that feeling and sentiment you get walking into the right bathroom, or being questioned whether you should be there or not. Having those gender neutral bathrooms really does help out.
Yeah, so important. Amber, have you got anything that you'd like to just add to that before we take another question from the chat function?
No, just that. Yeah, I very much sympathise with the thing about bathrooms. Like it's very difficult. And it's something that I very much sympathise with. When it was like bathrooms, like yes, gender neutral bathrooms are fantastic. So definitely. Excellent.
So you agree. Brilliant. We've got a question that's coming through here from Yasmin, who's asked, what did the panelists feel from their experience of the top barriers trans people face working in FS? Who would like to take this question first? Erica, how about you?
Yeah, I'll take that. I think maybe in the beginning, it was my own barrier. I was my own barrier, right? So I was in an organization, I was always client relationship. And I think I had to come to an understanding of who I was and who I was becoming for real now. And it was almost as if the gender situation is, where is the female voice, and finding my new female voice and what that was. I'm talking my voice. I don't really care for my voice, but my voice, my presence, my voice in being and who I am in the room and being accepted, right? And it's just like any other female out there. And that's always been a barrier in financial services, right? That glass ceiling has been there for decades, and it's being broken now by many, many facets and races too. So I think that was something that me just overcoming my own fear and stigma, and then being realized I'm capable of doing this.
Yeah.
Now, I could help people do this as well. So I think that was
Yeah,
an own self-realization.
Yeah. So confidence, and how do you develop the confidence to feel great, to feel like you matter, that you can give your views? How are you encouraged? Yeah. Super. Emma, anything from you there in terms of barriers for trans people within FS?
No, I haven't. So this is, I feel like I should have a better answer than this, but no, I came into the industry just after I came out, and I was applying for not just financial industry work. I was applying kind of anywhere, and I found it really quite a positive space to work in terms of, I haven't had any trouble. I feel like I've been very strongly supported where I am, and at least in the UK, there's a quite a strong network of networks. There's quite a strong industry level of networks as well.
Yes.
And I feel like I've been really well supported, and I wasn't confident I'd ever get a job after my last one, because I'd just come out. And so coming into the industry and finding that it's been quite such a positive experience has been really good.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I mean, it's a credit to Fidelity really, for how the environment I think they've created around sort of the LGBT space. How did it feel when you first rocked up at Fidelity and you're seeing the LGBT network, etc.? How did that sort of make you feel?
So like it was quite scary, because like I said, this was like one of my I think this is the first and so far only interview I'd done since I'd come out as well.
Yeah.
And actually it was really gratifying. Like I went to the manual once I'd been accepted to the job, and was really happy to see that there was a whole quite in-depth section about being trans and explaining a lot of the issues there. And the network was being led by a guy called Ollie, and he was really friendly. He kind of wanted to chat and kind of get me included, and it was a really kind of positive space, and I found it a really positive space, both kind of in my day-to-day and in that aspect of talking about, and kind of like building an atmosphere, not just in my my normal role, but kind of having a supportive network there.
Yeah,
I rambled a bit there, sorry.
Matt, that's so important. And I always say this, the networks, if you're not part of a network, you need to be part of it, especially your, out and allies type of network. But for me, when I came out, I mean, they had a welcoming out day in New York with senior leaders there to help make that day special and memorable. Wow. It's a day I'm never going to forget. That's a massive day when you come to work for your first time as your true self, and to have that sponsorship, allyship there to support you. It's so important. So any company that can help do that, especially, I mean, I know HR is there to help facilitate that, but those networks really help.
You drive
it too.
Yeah. And Emma, any sort of views from you in terms of barriers for trans people within FS?
I'm going to take that question slightly differently and think about the enablers.
Yeah.
So I think, I mean, it took me a long time to find the right organisation where I felt I could transition. And I think one of the signals I got from an organisation was the fact that they'd appointed a head of diversity and inclusion, and that to me suggested, well, this was a place that takes diversity seriously, that actually wants to make a difference. And then off the back of my transition, I've been able to set up an LGBT network. I've been able to create a transgender policy, which includes medical support, which isn't common in the UK, but we've got that through. So I hope that anyone else looking at SJP from the outside would see things like that. That's not just virtue signaling. That is genuinely wanting to be an inclusive environment and try and make. And so employees, talent will go and find those organisations.
Yeah. I think that's a really fantastic point, actually, and relates to one of the questions that have just come through here. So Rachel's asked, how can we spot the difference between firms that are virtue signalling versus those who genuinely care about this? What are our views there, Erica?
Yeah, I mean, look, we've got senior global executive committee buy-in and membership. They sponsor our networks. It's always important to have the top-down representation and sponsorship and involvement, right? And when you see them on a call internally promoting and having a call about intersectionality, I mean, to me, that just resonates, that they're genuinely interested And they're not part of the community. And I'll tie into that second question there is how you can be an ally. Well, that's part of it, right? Be part of the network, educate yourself, get a little flag, little LGBTQ flag on your, put in your desk, make a representation, but probably most importantly, be a proactive ally. When you hear something that's disingenuous, educate that person when we're not there.
Yeah.
That's part of that whole situation.
Very powerful. And it's sometimes these little signals, isn't it? And it, it's not like every time we want to be an ally, it's not a case we need to do a big event or do a big webinar, but actually there's little things that we can do. Share something that's positive, trans, non-binary on your social media.
And I'd say, Matt, can I, sorry.
Yeah,
dive in. So off the back of the report that's been released today, I've already been contacted by my executive sponsor saying, wow, this is amazing. Look at these statistics. We've got to do something about this and get this in front of our executive board early next year.
Wow.
And just recognizing that this cuts across the entire organization, employees, our distribution network, clients, the whole lot, our investment management strategy, everything. So he's really fired up by it. So I think today's report is great. Wave it in front of people's faces, get them to read it.
Thank you for that endorsement. I'm glad it resonates. I didn't pay you to do that, just for the record. Ember, what about you? Any thoughts from you there in terms of any of the themes we've just been discussing?
No, I mean, I guess I'd echo what Erica said. Like, I did a webinar for Pride with our CEO talking about kind of trans issues and stuff like that with some people she knew. And it's generally speaking, like, I feel like I've gotten a lot of support in terms of, and I feel bad because I feel like I could probably be able to answer this question better. I don't know how to kind of distinguish between virtue signaling and stuff. Certainly, there are things like that I'd love to see more of, like active support on the medical side of things. I don't know how difficult that is to set up, but like the more material support that can be provided is obviously an excellent thing. But even just making sure you're clear and vocal at all levels. That that you are trans inclusive and listening to your trans colleagues when they say, here's something that we should be doing, here's kind of, a direction we should go in. And I've been very gratified that we've kind of done that here. So.
Excellent. Yeah, I think one of the things that we got out of the process of putting this report together actually is that there's generally two things that LGBT talent is seeking, specifically trans and non-binary, when they're looking at organisations and looking at that difference between, are we just virtue signaling this? Are we doing what we have to because we've been told we need to do it, or do we really mean it? And the two things are, one, have we got the right sort of foundations, policies, benefits? It was all that HR stuff where it needs to be. And then the other thing is, how often is this organisation actually talking about this? Is it just doing it around Pride, or is it doing it consistently? Is it something that, again, we're seeing leadership on from the top? That's another sort of a litmus test as well. And I know within all of your organisations, you've got many of your exec leaders and around the world that are consistently talking about, the importance of this. So I think it's significant. We've got 5 minutes left now, and I really want to get to one of the questions that's perhaps more from a personal perspective. But when you first realised that you were transgender, and just a little bit about what your own journeys have been. And perhaps, Emma, if we come to you first, do you want to tell us a little bit about sort of your story and where you've got to?
Was that Emma or Emma?
That was Emma from SJP.
Sorry, we're wasting our 5 minutes, aren't we? I think there's several parts to this question. So when did I first realise my gender identity was different from what was expected of me? I'd say preschool. When did I start building a wall in my head based on the belief that I was the only person in the world who felt like that? Probably around the same time. So it took me a long time to actually transition, and that was kind of in my late 40s, not that long ago. And I transitioned at work in 2019. There wasn't one day when I was kind of like, close the door on who I was and open the door in this kind of semi-glamorous thing that I am now. It was over a long period of time. But I transitioned at work, and I remember walking into work on that first day in November 2019, absolutely bricking it. but SJP were absolutely fantastic. I was the first permanent employee to transition, and we set up a little project plan that we can reuse when other employees want to transition as well, because there's all the technology changes and the practical changes and everything else. Security passes, the whole lot. So yeah,
wow,
got me to where I am. Yeah,
fantastic. And interesting that you point out, you knew from a really young age. Was it the same for you, Erica?
Yep, three.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I can tell you, because I used to dress up my mom's clothes back then, but and then I got to go up for Halloween in my teen years, but then we put all that on hold. We started getting into construction work, bodybuilding, anything you could do to make that stuff go away. But I almost transitioned when I was 25, but then ended up getting married, having kids. And, my therapist said to me, "You're going to regret this in 20 years by walking away." And I said, I called her back 22 years later. I said, "Well, I waited 22 to spite you instead of 20." So that was the long and short of it. And, and like the same Emma mentioned, going through those initial changes in early 2016, 2017, we got through the systems, we modified our healthcare plans. We partnered with actually our families at BlackRock to help broaden benefits across all folks too, which we did through a number of different initiatives. But I think it was helping to drive change, but also feeling embraced while you're going through the transition. I got to be honest with you, I never thought I'd be able to do it in financial services.
Yeah.
Especially having started in the late 90s. And I think about the movie like a Wall Street, and you just never conceive of this stuff. And then the amount of change that I've seen over the past 25 years, I mean, it's been multiple cultures, which is interesting.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing. And Amber, what about you? Ember, sorry.
Yeah. So I think looking back, I realized that I should have realized I was trans from quite a young age. I had a lot of like, yeah, but doesn't everyone want to be a girl? Like that's a normal thing, right? And yes, exactly. And like I spent a lot of my youth trying kind of considering whether or not I was trans, and I had a very fixed idea of what trans meant, which was kind of being really committed to surgery, and if you weren't there raring to go for surgery, then you weren't really trans. So I kind of came out, I think 2016 or 2017, to myself, and then started coming out at my previous job, like I mentioned, and they were going through a little bit of a rough spot. So they laid off quite a large portion of the business shortly after I came out, and it wasn't a great surprise that I was laid off at that time. I was okay at my old job, but I wasn't great, and they only kept the top half of the business, and I was just under that. But having just come out, it was very much like, it was pretty scary. I was prepared to like never work formally again. I was gonna go into doing technical support for people on an informal basis, and so it was quite a scary thing. I didn't have to do any of the changing of records and things, apart from at my old job where they changed my name. But I came, like, it was quite scary coming into Fidelity, and coming into anywhere, having literally just started coming out, and I was still, medical transition over here takes quite a while. So I didn't feel necessarily super comfortable in my skin at that time. But I felt really supported, like that, everyone was really good. We've recently updated our policies and things, and but I realized I've just pushed us up. We're at the limit now. So we're at 15. So
thank you for sharing a bit about your journey as well. And closing for today, let's go back to each of you, just to get any final closing remarks from you. Perhaps Emma, if we go to you first, if that's okay.
Yeah, so I'll just end with a call to action. So join your network, join your LGBT network at work if you have one. If you haven't got one, start one. I'm sure there's people that can help with that. Encourage your organisation to sign up to LGBT. Great, we share knowledge, we share information, so that's a great thing. Stonewall is a great thing to sign up to. Trans in the City, if you're in the UK, is very supportive of trans inclusion as well. Get involved, just understand trans folk, and
talk more. Brilliant. And Ember, what about you? Any final remarks from you?
I don't have anything nearly as insightful as Emma. Just it's been really great to be here. I can echo everything that she said. But it's very much it's important that you can be your authentic self. and that
Yeah.
you can thrive where you are. And yeah, I've been quite lucky to do that, to be able to do that. And thank you very much for having me.
You're very welcome. And Erica, let's go over to you for final remarks there.
I mean, look, now's the time. Be confident in who you are. Step up and take the lead. Simple put. You can make changes happen. I did, and I know others who have as well too.
Super. Brilliant. Thank you very much for sharing all of your stories and views and experiences. It's been amazing. So thank you on behalf of LGBT Great. And for everyone dialing in, we will share a short recording of the session as well, and the report. We didn't get to the question on personal pronouns. I'm really sorry about that. But if you look at page 23 in the report, there is lots in there that explains all about them, the what, the why, the how. So please do take a read, and wishing you all a very happy Trans Awareness Week. So thank you very much. Take care.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Amber.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Be well.